exclusive episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And this is the show that is so good, it happens every week. Great Scott to True Crime Phil with Scott Duffy, former FBI special agent out of the Delaware agency. He was in the FBI for 20 plus years. Prior to that, he was a Commonwealth of PA police officer for 5.5 years. The man on the bottom of the screen, it says it all right there. Fil Waters, retired Houston PD homicide detective. He is America's most respected detective. Spent 33 years at, give or take a few months, in law enforcement. He has one of the highest confession rates, one of the highest clearance rates. In short order, he is America's most respected detective. He also is president and founder and CEO of Kindred Spirits Investigations, and he was the host of The Interrogator, which he preferred to be called The Interview Room. Happy Friday to everybody as we wait for people to file in here. I just want to say one or two things off the top. Did an interesting interview with the man who wrote the book While Idaho Slept last night. Thought he was a very engaging, interesting guy. Amongst those comments I was reading, I had one person say, "Can you please change the intro music? It is too jolting for me. I listen to the podcast at night." Someone else said, "Your background is very distracting." To both those people, I say the following: I love you to death. I love the STS community more than life itself, but you could buzz right off. I'm not switching the intro music, and I'm not switching the background. Maybe 6 months from now, the whole reason I got out of mainstream media is I don't need to have a bookshelf with 3 books over my shoulder and be boring like the rest of them. That's why I have my mother wagging her finger at me with Mabel Rose and my Surviving the Survivor posters and my dad's book, which you can't see right now as I block it on the table. If you got a problem with my background, speak to me. Fil Waters, how's everything going?
Life is amazing. It's the cup is overflowing every day. And you know what? This will get him going right. So
why waste time?
We may as well. So, the Ferrari, my whole life is everything is a God story. It's a gift. These Ferraris, these are God stories. And I'm not talking about prosperity crap. I'm talking about these are God stories. And today a young man called me from a dealership in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh boy, he's buying a third one. Go ahead.
Well, no. They had looked to be a Giallo 360 that was coming into their inventory there. They didn't have the car yet. Anyway, they described the car as being this pristine, blah, 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 blah. So the only question I had was, is it a gated shifter? Well, I called them. I talked to one of the owners. And he told me that it was not a gated shifter. So I said, well, we're done. But we talked, and he was a very good guy, and we had a long conversation. I said, well, if I ever get around to looking for another Ferrari, then perhaps I'll get in touch with you, because I liked the relationship we'd established and seemed to be pretty open and honest. So then today, I get a phone call from one of the salesmen from the same motor car company, and he was telling me about this same 360 that they finally have it in the inventory. And of course, he wanted to make contact with me and check to see if I was still looking and whatever. Explained to him about the gated shifter thing. told him about how these Ferraris are. He goes, "You really like Ferraris, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." Told him about the 308 here, blah, blah, blah. So I said to him, and these Ferraris are all God stories. So he shared with me that he was a believer. And by the end of that conversation, he asked me to pray with him. And that made his day going into the weekend. So I just want to share that, another affirmation about all the blessings that God has just in his divine providence has showered on me, because these cars are being used to spread the good news about him.
Phil, I will make you this deal. When you get me a Ferrari, I will definitely pray with you. There's no doubt about that. By the way,
you got to start praying before.
You're probably right about that. Let me ask you this. How small is the world of Ferrari? Like, if you put it out there that you are looking for such and such Ferrari, is it a relatively small network of people around the country who are now who you're now talking to? Are there only so many places to go because only so many people have Ferraris?
Well, you can go on Ferrari chat. It's a community of Ferrari. I'm a member of the Ferrari Club of America, and of course that brings in the international component. I mean, I get stuff from Europe, from UK. So it's I would say it's a little big community. It's kind of like you've got a big community within that smaller scope of Ferrari owners. So it's a different group of people. I'm just finding it fascinating to rub elbows with these people that know a heck of a lot more about them than I do, which is always amazing to me, just to learn more of the history of Ferrari itself. But
it's interesting you say that, because just ahead of the show, Scott and I were talking to each other on Yugo chat. We're part of the Yugo Club. Scott and I. Yeah. When I was in Serbia this summer, I saw a beautiful Yugo. I think I sent you guys photos. Mm-hmm. I saw a Yugo at parked on the lawn of the cemetery where my grandfather, who's not buried, this will get everyone in a jovial mood on a Friday. My grandfather was gassed in Auschwitz, my Carm's father. No remains, nothing to be had. So they just put his name on a tombstone, and we went to this cemetery. And what's the first thing I see in the middle of nowhere in Serbia? I see a Yugo parked on like on a grassy knoll, if you will, not the same grassy knoll. And right behind that is my grandfather's name written. So that was my experience. Didn't mean to depress the entire world with that story, but needless to say, Scott and I are part of the Yugo Club while you're part of the Ferrari Club. Look at this. Happy birthday to Kathy P. in Arizona. Angela says, "Hi, CEO and Joel." People are already yelling. Scott hasn't said anything. Joel's talking only to Phil. Can you tell us if Tim Janson is all right? We're all wondering how he's doing. Scott and Phil, I don't even know if you know who Tim is, but Tim is Tallahassee's most famous attorney. And he was in a bike accident. He hit a root of a tree, flipped over, cracked 5 ribs. Told him he had a very difficult night last night. We, STS Nation, sent him a little basket to his hospital room. We're hoping for a speedy recovery. So that is the deal. Kathy P., I love me some Fil and Scott on Fridays. Scott Duffy, how's your week going? Because if we don't hear from you in the next 0.3 seconds, I'm going to get hate mail. How's everything?
Everything is fine. The sun is shining. It's good here in Pennsylvania.
Yep. And that lapel pin, is that an FBI lapel pin?
I'm wearing this especially because I just got it. So hand delivered from the FBI director, Ray. So it's It's a memorial pin that was given to us for everybody that had served at one of the 3 sites for 9/11. So it was given to us a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
And I'm proudly sporting it, and it's got all the markings to memorialize those sites.
And where were you, Scott Duffy? Because I don't know that I even know this story. On 9/11, were you assigned to one of the sites?
Yeah, I spent a couple of months at the Pentagon.
I never knew this. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was married just 3 months, and my wife woke me up because I was working working drugs back then. So I was working a midnight shift at the port of Wilmington, and then she woke me up saying, "Hey, where and when are you going?" And had no clue what she was talking about. As America was under attack. So I woke up, saw this second plane hit live, and then the barrage of phone calls came in. So yeah, my team, the evidence response team was sent to the Pentagon, and that's where I stayed until the job was done.
Wow.
So,
So we've already covered the Holocaust and 9/11 in the first 10 minutes and 51 seconds.
amazing.
Fil Waters, where were you on that inauspicious day back on 9/11? It was early Houston time. Where were you? How did you get the news?
I was sitting in my hooch in the homicide division on the 6th floor of 1200 Travis, and someone from the front desk called me and said, "You need to come up here and see what's happening."
And I assume you got up. What's a hooch? Is that your little area?
My little cubicle.
Oh.
Yeah, my little hooch.
And so you get up, I assume, and do you go to a TV set? Where is a TV set at a police?
Well, they had a big TV set up at the intake desk, and so I went up there. The first plane had already hit, and I watched as the second plane hit. And the minute I saw the second plane come out of the corner of the screen and hit the second tower, my words were, "We're under attack." And I didn't even have any context for what was happening, but that was my comment.
Wow. And then what did you do in the following minutes and hours as a member of the Houston PD?
Well, like everyone, we were our department, the city of Houston, of course, as the national response occurred, we were localized, where we were put on alert. And in the case, in fact, I think for a few days, if I recollect, a few days after that, we were required, because we're all plainclothes guys in homicide and investigations, we were required to bring our uniforms with us into work in the event that we need to be mobilized.
So there's a guy. I'll wrap this up, and we'll get into the true crime stories of the week. But one of my oldest friends, Rob Crozier, grew up with him, known him since second grade. Oh man, William M. said his pup was having trouble yesterday. Heavy heart tonight. Lost my best friend today. Love Roxy. William, I am sorry to hear that. Look in there, Phil. That's a Marine Corps logo. So I'm assuming William is
Semper Fi, and we'll be keeping you in our prayers, William.
Yeah, that is one of the. I mean, I hate this. It's just a horrible loss, man. I wish I had some words for you. I told you last night, William. That's my beloved Mabel Rose right there. 17. What I would give to have her back, but it's cliche. You got to hold on to those memories. I'm really sorry to hear that. It sucks. That's all I can say. It's horrible. I'm sorry. So Rob Crozier, I've known him since second grade. There's about 5 guys I'm still really tight with from back then. Rob Crozier was fraternity brothers with Jeremy Glick. Jeremy Glick was on one of those planes, the one that crashed in Pennsylvania, Scott Duffy. He was also an Olympic level. He wasn't in the Olympics, but he was on his way to being a black belt. He was a black belt, but being in the Olympics for judo. Very accomplished judoka, as they say. And Rob Crozier is convinced, that famous line, "ready to roll," or whatever it was from the plane, that Jeremy Glick had something to do with helping avoid another terror attack in that plane. Wow. So thinking of Jeremy Glick, it's hard to believe that that's like 22 years ago. That's unbelievable that's 22 years ago. Now on to happier news, Phil. What's the latest? Everyone wants to know. Nugget is the star of this show. Is she in your abode, or is she still down the hill, the proverbial hill?
Well, a little bit of both. She was gone for a week. Then suddenly she showed up. And of course, things were good. This happened this week. And this happened, I guess, Tuesday.
Look how beautiful she is, by the way.
And she is an awesome dog.
Gorgeous.
And she stayed here, and we got up the next day, and I went out and started working on our Ohia post. I've been sanding out, refinishing our Ohia post. So she's done this a couple of times. Well, she came out. She saw what I was doing. She immediately headed down the road to the library. There's something over at the library that she has to go investigate. She's done this twice since we've been back. So she went down to the library, and then I watched her. And then she comes walking across toward her owner's house or their property. And then all of a sudden I see one of their trucks coming down the street and pulling into the gate. So she went over there, and that's the last we've seen of her. So she may have escaped. And then once she got back down there, she saw the warden coming down the street, and so she opted to go over.
So she's not in the home today. She's back.
Not here. She's been MIA for 2 days.
I'm absolutely heartbroken. So last time I talked to you, you told me that, by the way, look, Mish, coming to us from Cape Town, my 3 favorites with a funny you and favorites. Lots of love, free Nugget. Hold on. Last time I texted with you, you told me she was back home, and I felt comfortable. And by home, I mean your home. But you're telling me she's gone again.
Yep, she is gone again.
I'm devastated.
She's been recaptured.
Well, we are going to get these graphic tees made. I'm Not T-Pain has been working on this, and we're going to have free Nugget shirts. People were mystified by this, Fil Waters. They thought that Nugget was, in fact, your dog. They couldn't believe that they could not believe that she's not your dog. But to be fair, she is owned by the neighbors, correct?
She is owned by the neighbors. Yes, she is.
I think that you should, like I said last time, dog napper, bring her back to Houston. It actually hurts my heart looking at this photo because I would love to scratch right under that big ear and let her know that I love. Do you miss her when she's not there? Like, does it feel empty at night?
I mean, we have our poppy dog, but of course we miss her.
Yeah. But I mean, like tonight, are you going to be sad that she's not there laying with you on your lazy boy?
I was sad last night. And yeah.
Wow.
When she's not here, I mean, there's an element of the atmosphere of this home that's missing. Yes, of course.
I'm so worried because Scott's extra quiet today. Scott, say something. Just say hello.
I miss Nugget.
Oh,
That's my guy right there. That's my man right there.
All right, so look who's joining us. Catch Lisk has been on the show. If you don't know Catch Lisk has been following the Long Island serial killer case closely. I follow his Twitter very closely because he gets a lot of great information regarding what's going on, and that is our lead story here. When we talk about this case in Idaho and other cases, but these in particular, I like to remember the victims. We've got Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Rex Heuermann is a prime suspect in her case as well. But now we are revisiting other victims' names, and it is Shannan, Gilbert, and Karen Vergata, formerly Jane Doe number 7. They've come back to the picture. So this was a wild press conference. It happened on Wednesday. We covered it live on STS with some amazing analysis from retired NYPD Sergeant Joe Giacalone and retired Las Vegas Police Detective Phil Ramos. But basically, and Scott, I'll start with you so I don't get the people yelling at me again that I'm too one-sided with Phil. But essentially, the bottom line here is the attorney, John Ray, he's an attorney for the victims' families. He came forward, and he's a character. He was wearing a pink striped fedora, And I'll bring up his photo here just so we can all see this, because I would like to get your guys' take on the outfit as well. But this is him, John Ray, standing next to the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison. So, Scott Duffy, John Ray announces that he has 4 new witnesses who have come forward since seeing Rex Heuermann. And basically 2 of them have signed sworn affidavits saying that they saw Rex Heuermann, they saw him with these 2 other women, and that he believes there's a link to, he's seen them with Shannan, Gilbert, and Karen Vergata, these witnesses have. What's your initial reaction knowing the magnitude of this case? And now, the body's found in 2010, it's 2023 now, and people are apparently coming forward and speaking to this attorney. Surprising to you or not surprising?
No, not surprising. I feel in my heart that the others who have not yet had their day in court will have their day in court, and I don't see this just being a dumping ground of different homicides and winding up on Gilgo Beach. So I think law enforcement's doing their job painstakingly so, and good for the attorney. I believe that the victims' families here, that they should have a constant voice and let their stories be heard. And especially as their pasts come about, let them be told. And then this is how you gather information. This is how you gather intelligence. So like anything else, when there's a suspected, typically some sort of sexual assault of one individual, and it's a one-on-one, and then law enforcement puts the word out, and then you start to get other individuals that say, okay, well, I have a story, and so law enforcement goes through that and sees what evidence can come of that. So I think the same way here, you have these victims that are laying there waiting for their story to be told, and for other people to come about and say that Rex's life intersected with theirs is great, as long as I'm hoping to be corroborated by other than just a witness statement, which is great because it gives a point of location, and then perhaps as they've been on phones and whatnot, that they can come up with something else to corroborate with those witnesses. Or so it's little by little, these pieces are coming together. Some will hold, and some will just probably remain on a shelf because it can't be corroborated. But I think it's all great, and I think it goes to show, if not every one of them, most of them are connected.
I just want to say something. I said something very beautiful about my mother the other day, and I'd like to say something about Scott and Fil. I love these guys. It's a weird thing. I don't know them long. We just met at Crime Con. 2 of the finest gentlemen you will ever meet. They come on the show. They are gracious with their time. Sometimes Fil gets beat up for no good reason. Fil has a heart of gold, and I just want them to know that for no other reason. And I feel the same way about the community, and that is why I say best guest, better community. But these 2 guests are as good as they come. Raul Thomas says, did Rex visit swingers clubs in Las Vegas? He's asking this for a reason, and we'll get to it in a moment. But it turns out that Rex wasn't at a swingers club per se, but a swingers club party came to him, and we're going to dissect that. Shout out to Hope 8 Fear, just gifted a Surviving the Survivor membership. Copper Horse from the great state of New Jersey yesterday, she gifted 100 memberships, which was amazing. So that blew me away. Look at this. Kimber Miller just discovered that someone gifted me a membership last week. I wish I knew who to thank. Such a great community here. I was just saying that. I swear I did not see that comment. Happy Friday, everyone. So, Fil Waters, we're going to break this down a little bit. And I don't want to puff my chest out in any way, but yours truly was on Court TV this morning with Julie and Julie Grant. I don't know why I just blanked on that name. And then I am doing Court TV at 8 p.m. with Vinny Politan, and Carm is joining me. So I'm going to have to bounce out of here. just a few minutes earlier than normal, but not much. So Fil Waters, Rodney Harrison, the commissioner of Suffolk County says, or the director, the commissioner, I don't know what they call him there. We have a job here as law enforcement, as Suffolk County Police Department, to make sure we investigate every single complaint or interest in this case. Make sure we look under every single stone to see if there's any connection to Rex Heuermann, or if there's a connection to somebody else that may be involved with the bodies that were discovered on Ocean Parkway. Went on to say that he added 2 more investigators. People were intrigued by the fact that he was standing next to the attorney during this press conference. What did you make of that? Because it seems to be pretty substantial. He'd not been there before. And also, what do you think of John Ray's outfit, Phil?
Well, it's certainly colorful. He's and it looks, all the colors do match. I mean, they're very well put together there. And I love the lid. I love the lid. I do on occasion, back in Texas in the colder weather, I do have a little derby that I wear. It looks like it's so reminiscent of the old Hat Squad, the old detective guys.
I'd love to get a photo of that. I'll put it on Instagram.
I'll be happy to do that for you when I get back to Texas. I tell you what, this new commissioner here, he's the guy that is that's breathed life, into this investigation and brought it back to where it needs to be. And everything that you just said, quoting him, is the things that need to be said. They're adding detectives because that's a good sign that they're getting a lot of information in there that has to be disseminated, and that's for more horsepower. So, and he's saying the right things here. They've got to look at every clue that comes in, every person that comes in and makes a claim, in the hopes that they can corroborate the claims. And if that happens, then you're starting to build more affirmative links and more evidence in this particular investigation, which is going to be getting bigger with every new piece of evidence. So in terms of him being present in front of the commissioner, the commissioner's a smart guy, and he would not, I don't think, unless I'm just completely off here, he would not put himself in a position that would later turn out to be foolhardy. So whatever this attorney is saying, the scope of the information that he's got, to me, being up there with the commissioner gives what he is saying incredible credibility.
Good point. And that's what a lot of people thought. By the way, Scott Duffy, when we met at Crime Con, gifted the Waldman family 5 FBI hats, and we all wear them. The lapel pin reminded me of that. And even Carm is now rocking her FBI hat, and some people think she's an undercover agent, but she's wearing the hat. So it's a bit of a giveaway. Oh, look at this. McSpunky, he gifted 5 memberships. McSpunk is very generous. I was calling him MC Spunky for a long time, and I still might. Good morning from Victoria, Australia. Look at this. Andrea Talu, a huge hello to you from Bavaria, Germany. Love your channel. We love you. Can't tell what you're hugging there. That looks like almost like an anteater, doesn't it? It's hard to tell. What do you call it? Is it a bird?
I think so.
I can't really tell, but anyway.
I think it might be an iguana.
An iguana, but yeah. Andrea or Andrea? Since you're from Germany, I'm going to go with Andrea, but let us know what that is that you're holding. William M., hang in there, man. That is rough. So Scott Duffy, John Ray, who's obviously very colorful, and Fil Waters just said that the commissioner was there for a reason, because it's probably credible stuff, said at Wednesday's press conference that one of the witnesses, who was a cab driver, said in this signed affidavit that she picked up a woman she believed to be Shannan Gilbert. So the cab driver picks up a woman who she says is Shannan Gilbert, one of the victims, in the summer or fall of 2009. That's obviously right when the bodies were starting to be found. She claimed that prior to picking the woman up, a dispatcher told her that this person, reportedly Shannan Gilbert, had locked herself in the bathroom in a room at the motel. Once at the motel, she said she drove to the room. This is a cabbie, flashed her headlights and honked a horn. That is what the person who called the cab wanted her to do. At the press conference, John Ray says a giant man, look at this, a giant man who fits the description of Rex Heuermann comes out and he's covering his face like this with his arms so he can't be seen. And he runs to a van or an SUV right nearby that's parked there. The cab driver said that that she continued to flash her lights and beep her horn, and out comes this woman crying. She called her a girl, shaking, very upset, and gets in her car. The woman who fled the hotel room tells the cab driver that she had met the man on Craigslist and he had promised to take care of her family. And this is where it gets interesting. According to the affidavit, he gives this woman, reportedly Rex Heuermann, or a guy who looks like him, gives reportedly Shannan Gilbert a thick white envelope. He then goes to the bathroom, and the woman says she looks inside the envelope and finds that it is stuffed with cut up papers. She said that he said, I was giving you all this money for your family. It's stuffed with paper. She says she gets upset and says the man gets very aggressive, and that's how she ends up in the bathroom calling for help. You are an experienced investigator. I am not. What do you make of this story?
I like the fact that the witness is a cabbie driver. I've had some fantastic witnesses in my course of my career who are cab drivers. They are fantastic. They're great interviewers. You know, they just know how to get information out of their passengers. So they have a great recall of detail. So what I like, and I would be imagining that detectives are already on top of, if it's not a defunct, if it's still a valid cab company, that they're scouring through receipts as far back as that, because some of the cab companies I've been to, I've seen decades of files of just receipts and notes, et cetera, like that. So hopefully that's still intact. You know, you have a hotel or a motel, so you can go back and try to go through their documents. And I know the difference between going from paper to a paperless society. Many things have been lost, but hopefully, if they're not physically there, there is a digital record of things. So there's a lot of things to be able to corroborate. No doubt in my mind that that story happened, and now let's see if, in fact, that cabbie's recollection is, in fact, the big guy. Hopefully, is what they suspect to be Rex, and then, of course, Shannan being one of these victims found at Gilgo Beach. That and to be able to tie those stories together. That's what you want to do, is put a previous connection. Doesn't mean that he had anything to do with the homicide, but now you've established a point, a reference point, and say they do have a relationship, like very similar, a pattern, right? That's where a pattern of him getting to know these girls and then killing them. So it's just another great piece of information obtained from the attorney. And just like Phil was saying, that commissioner standing right there, he's on it. He's they're scouring through to see if they can put paper together with that recollection.
Let's take a 1 second respite here from Michelle Pretorius, coming to us from South Africa. Phil, she just had a baby girl. Phil, you're the man. You're the man of God and the man of wisdom on the show. What life advice do you have for Michelle Pretorius, the new mother of a baby girl?
Her first child, right?
I don't know. It's a great question.
I'm
not sure if it's
well, regardless.
Child. Yeah.
Look,
let's assume it is.
All these children are gifts from God. He knows each one of us before we're even in the womb. And he has a plan for each one of them. So she's been given a great gift here, and it's going to be her responsibility to raise this child in a way that they become a productive member of society. And I don't know what her particular spiritual, connection is, but if she is a Christ follower, then she has that in her pocket there to help her, giving her wisdom on how to raise this new baby. I'll tell you what, though, I can only go back to when my kids were born and when my son was born. That I just remember holding him, and right after he's out to shoot, right, and I am holding him. He was only 6 pounds 8 ounces, and I just remember that the love that I felt for him at that moment was, in a very literal way, was crushing my chest. I felt physical discomfort because of the love that I felt for him. And it was amazing. I'm sure that's the way that she feels about this new gift.
2 follow-up questions. Is he now over 10 pounds, and do you still have that crushing love, or do you hate him now?
He's now over 10 pounds, well over it. And the crushing love has only increased over time as I've watched him grow.
Love that, Fil. You can hear a little bit of emotion in that voice. People think that Fil is some hardened detective. He is not. I bawled at all 3 of my kids' births. I do have to admit that for number 2, I was watching a UFC fight in the background as she was coming out of the shoot, and the nurses were not happy about it. But there are priorities in life, and I still cried nevertheless, but very emotional. Scott Duffy, did you cry at the birth of your children?
Oh yeah, I was glad to be there for all 4. So it is absolutely an amazing. Can't put it to words, and so I was a little worried there with some traveling out and about that I would miss one, but nope.
You were there. And were the Phillies in the playoffs at that time? Were you watching a Phillies game for any of the 4?
Oh gosh, I will say that I've become a Phillies fan as a result of my kids. So 08-09 was our big time for when I'm in Philadelphia. So I know they go back to 80, but 08-09 were great. I managed to get to both the World Series, but they really weren't on my mind during the time my kids were being born. My last was born prior to the 08 World Series. So.
Well, I must be a bad dad. I don't want my second to know that I was watching a UFC fight during the process. Look at this. This I bring up because it's hilarious. Joel, where do you get your energy? If the COE is listening, she's probably laughing. I can barely get through every day. Every one of my days, like walking through 7 feet of mud. I think it's my anxiety. It weighs me down, but hopefully that's getting better. Abby Tahaha, happy Friday, STS. I love you and the set to death. Hi, adopted dad. AD Fil. Fil, missed you all. Look at this. KDM. The background is unique and awesome. Look at this. Oh, dang. Joel's on fire this Friday. I really put my heart and soul into this. And so when I get the one comment, can you change your music or your background? Look at this. Kaz loves cakes. The intro music is great for when you're waiting in another room. Let you know the show's begun. Thank you, Joel. You made a great choice. Thank you very much.
Joel,
yes, sir.
Let me get my first interruption in here.
Please.
So we're talking about children here, and so let's correlate that discussion about children with this show. So this show is in fact your child.
It is.
In a metaphoric way, right?
Correct.
When people criticize it, it's like somebody walking up to you and telling you, hey, you got an ugly kid there, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't go over well. Yes.
So there you go.
That's exactly what it's like. Look at this. From McSpunky, just 10,000 more payments like this, and that Ferrari is yours, Joel. Yeah. Let's do it, everyone. Ferrari fund virtual. 1999. I might just gift the next one to Phil.
That might be another T-shirt.
Look at this, Kimmy Wells. Ferrari hashtag Ferrari fund, and I'll have a photo of a Yugo on it. Someone wanted to know here. Oh, sorry, I put that one back up. I didn't mean to cut that one off.
Interruption in here real quick. The Yugo was made in the former Yugoslavia, right?
Yeah, which is now Serbia.
Right. So that's why they call them Yugos. It was short for Yugoslavia. Yeah, I remember those cars. They were interesting. You could kind of pick one up and put it in your pocket, and then wherever you went. Yeah.
Look at this. This looks like 59 euros to me. I love this show, the set, etc., but I admittedly feel bad for living as an expat in Germany when I hear you say Auschwitz. I am, by the way, Auschwitz is actually in Poland, but I get what you're saying here. I am, however, as a former journalist, working on another horrendous German story. Surviving the Survivor at Gmail, Kimmy. I love the name Kimmy, by the way. There's certain names that are just very friendly, and Kimmy is one of them. Back to the news at hand. I'm always amazed that anyone watches this on Friday because we get off on so many tangents. The rest of the week is not always like that. To you, Fil Waters, what about what Scott Duffy was saying? And the lawyer was saying this. There seems to be a pattern that was developing or is developing where Rex Heuermann, because you'll find out in the other case that he's carrying a small handgun, and he's forcing these women to do certain things with the handgun present. What about creating these patterns? How important is it in linking him to other victims? Are you reading Abby's comment, Phil?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah, that happens at least once a show. Are you talking to me?
I thought that was...
No, that's for you, Phil. The patterns...
That was a Scott question. So, what was the question again?
Patterns. So they say that he had a handgun. We're going to get to the second witness in a second, but basically he was, the lawyer kept saying he was hunting these women and, basically intimidating them with a weapon. How important is it to find these patterns in order to link him to other victims?
Well, it is very important because once those patterns are established, then you're building the timeline and the bigger picture about how these things could have occurred. And these guys, look, these serial killers, all of them, they do have a pattern of behavior. They get a plan together and it works, and they continue using what works. If something, they need to tweak it, they'll tweak it, but the basic pattern remains the same. And just a quick comment about the cab stuff. I worked at, these two suspects were actually murdering cab drivers. And so in working with, this was about 2010. So around the same time that we're talking about this cab thing in 2009. And I learned a lot in working with these cab companies because many of them, while those cab drivers are contractors, putting the yellow cab on their cars and so forth and so on, many of them, if not all of them, have onboard cameras in those cabs that record what's going on inside the cab. They also have GPS in them, which tells them where they go, when they go there, and so forth and so on, when they're picking up a fare, dropping them off, and so forth. And like Scott, these cab drivers are people that, by and large, they look at people and they have a fairly good assessment. It's when these folks do things that are a little odd that draws their attention to them. And so this cab driver and whoever's requesting the cab, at least in our case, the cab company was recorded the calls in to request a cab, which we used in our investigation. So I'm hopeful that cab driver, now I guess the question will be, is any of that stuff that we've talked about, did they have it available at the time? And is any of it archived? And for how long do they archive it? So it may be end up being just they had it and they don't have it now. But that information coming from a cab driver and that person doing some things that were so specific that causes her to recollect what happened then is very interesting. So I hope there is some credibility to what that cab driver is now sharing it, and maybe they can corroborate it if by nothing else than an old ticket that's somewhere in the system that shows that cab was requested from this location to take him to that location. So anyway.
And you just heard Scott Duffy say that cab drivers are great witnesses. They pay attention to detail, so that's interesting. Abby Taha. Karen Vergata was picked up by the couple fresh out of jail. How easy would it be to find her arrest records in New York City to validate it was her? This came up on Wednesday during the press conference, and former NYPD Sergeant Joe Jackalone said they can go back to that date and find this arrest record. Curious about Phil's take on Rex's extracurricular act. We're going to get to that in a moment. The meat and potatoes is coming up right now. Misdemeanor. Why was the police commissioner at a press conference with one lawyer, not his investigation team, to make this announcement? I didn't buy all of it. Neighbors next to Rex Heuermann and across the street are feet away. We can address that in a moment. So witness number 2 here, per John Ray, the attorney for the victim's family. Scott Duffy, your ears might not be able to handle all of this, but another witness alleges that she and her police detective boyfriend were swingers, and they were at a swingers club blocks from where Rex Heuermann's Manhattan office is. After the swingers club, they go to Rex Heuermann's house. Believe it or not, there was a swingers party after they found his number posted on a wall for hookups at this bar that they were in New York City. This is around Valentine's Day, 1996. This is when Karen Vergata went missing. Before they drive to Rex Heuermann's house, this witness alleges that they pick up Karen Vergata, a 34-year-old sex worker, previously known as Jane Doe number 7. Her remains were found on Long Island's Fire Island on April 20th, 96. Additional body parts are then discovered. Her skull was on Long Island's Tobay Beach on April 11th, 2011. Vergata was ultimately identified through genetic genealogy in August. The witness said they went inside Rex Heuermann's home and first sneeze ever on STS right there. Record it. Timestamp that. There might be another one coming. So let's just stop it right there, Scott, because there's some kinky stuff about to happen. This witness is dating a detective, and they end up at a swingers party at Rex's house, and she claims this is Karen Vergata. Sort of mind-blowing, head-spinning. Where do you take this from here, Scott, from an investigative standpoint?
Well, it goes to show you if you got some of these really interesting, and then when I see a lot of these things, I realize I do live somewhat of a boring life. So it is.
Scott's like, what have I done wrong?
I'm tongue-tied. I'm blushing here. So this detective, it'd be interesting to see if the detective, if it was well known. There's all kinds of characters in police departments. It's not like all these things. They may not be known to the community, but they're known in that nice inner circle of law enforcement camaraderie. So you have to be careful when you're participating in these activities and you don't want them out. Now all of a sudden you could be part of history for quite a notorious serial killer. So then all these things in the past come about. Oh, you were a swinger? I knew you were a swinger. I always knew it.
You're not speaking to Phil, are you?
So it's as these witnesses come out, it ultimately comes down to, let me put it this way, as a drug investigator, I wasn't a drug buyer or a drug user. I did a few just to I would get along a drug user who we've kind of befriended and turned onto our side. but ultimately what I had to do was use other members of the community who didn't have the greatest past to help me do my work. So I would say very much like that. I mean, in a world of these sex parties, these swinging parties, or whatnot, there's a lot going on, and so who's going to come out and say, oh yeah, I was there every Friday or something? So it's good that these people are coming forth, and especially if they've come across somebody that they now know to be, oh my gosh, she's a victim, and I have to come forward and come clean, and be willing to lose a little bit of reputation in the community. But I believe in my heart I saw something. Good for them. Good to be a witness in that regard. But again, all these things that are coming together, and I imagine there will be other stories, have to corroborate it. And I would imagine going to a sex party, there aren't a lot of receipts, credit card receipts and whatnot.
Fil Waters, about to open up a big can of worms on STS, because this could go a lot of different ways. By the way, Cosmic Shy says, $2 super sticker, man, oh man, curiouser and curiouser. Look at this, Montreal. Oh, I just COE bugs. You gotta caught another live, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I love, put that back up there, COE. Phil, you are wise beyond words and remind me a lot of my godfather, uncle. We lost him in 29. Please don't say I can't bear the thought of losing Fil Waters ever. So if it's okay, I'd like to consider you a surrogate uncle. Is that okay, Phil?
I would be proud to be. You bet.
There you go. Surrogate uncle. We've got
it's a lot of birthday cards, though. Phil has to say
that's true.
Mary Rigsby, it's neatly tied up. The no answer to giving the guns back, gun involved, and wife possibly. That's interesting. So Fil Waters, to continue with witness number 2, and I have like 17 other stories that we're not going to get through, but we'll make our way after this. According to this witness, who is now dating an unknown detective, after the swingers party, they end up at Rex Heuermann's Massapequa Park, Long Island home. The witness says Karen, meaning Karen Vergata, she believes it was Karen Vergata, goes upstairs. She wrote this all down in a sworn affidavit. I stayed upstairs with Asa. This is Rex's wife. So she stays upstairs with Asa. My partner, the detective, the male detective, who I believe, she says, was bisexual, kept disappearing. I believe he was elsewhere in the house having sex with Rex. Rex and sex rhyme. So just to make that abundantly clear, her male detective boyfriend, she believes, was having sex with Rex Heuermann. She says, I believe I had sex with Rex as well. I never went downstairs, and trying to recall this. When they were leaving the home, this same witness says, the woman I believe to be Karen, she was running outside naked and about the garage. I said to my boyfriend, the detective who just had sex with Rex, that she was very worried about her. She looked very scared. And the detective said to her, don't worry about her. She's okay. They're only playing a game. We left without her. I felt uneasy that we left without the woman. Phil, this is open-ended as I can get. Your reaction.
Well, that's disgusting and depraved on a whole lot of levels, right? So the very activity you're describing is disgusting. And I would have it would not be a big shocker that this evildoer is engaged in all sorts of perversions, those things. I'm just scared. I guess my only question here with all of this is, and the cop being involved in it, that's always disgusting to me. If that person, if his identity is revealed, and because the problem is when a cop does something like this, or does anything that's some sort of violation of moral turpitude, that kind of thing, or violation of law, it casts everyone in law enforcement with the same kind of light, and that's not the right thing to have happen, but that's unfortunate. That's what it does. That's what happens. And so a lot of stuff going on here in this story. So I guess my first question would be, she sees, is that what I understand here? That she sees whatever is happening with this particular evildoer and this woman, and she's concerned about what she sees. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, so I mean, there's multiple layers to the story. The way I understood it, because I did watch this press conference live, there's a lot that goes into it. But basically, this witness and her boyfriend, who's a detective, and by the way, the implication there, one of the implications, which I'd like to get Scott's take on, is there's this very controversial Chief James Burke, who was just recently arrested for soliciting male prostitution. He's kind of an off-the-handle, crazy dude, and a lot of people, and I don't know if Catch Lisk is still with us, but a lot of people have insinuated over the years that perhaps he had some sort of involvement in this. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just saying that that is the insinuation. So clearly, I'll get to Scott on that. They're going to have to investigate that. Whether he was the detective or not in question, we do not know. But to answer your question, Fil Waters, they arrive at this home where they're having this party, and Asa Ellerip is there, which is also interesting. That is the wife of Rex Heuermann. The detective, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, there's no way, because according to the witness, the detective is a black man, and Asa Ellerip was not into black men, as the story goes. So somehow along the way, this detective and Rex Heuermann engage in sexual activity. She doesn't see it firsthand. She believes that's what's happening because he disappears in the house. That's how I understand it.
Okay. Well, so that was going to be my next question. So the wife is taking part in the swapping stuff as well.
Correct.
Okay. And
by the way, Meg P makes a great point. How could you forget if you had sex with Rex, whose name rhymes with sex? I mean, that is Rex right there. How could you forget that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, right? So she's saying that she saw. What did she saying she actually witnessed?
Oh, so what she witnessed at the end,
or the thing with the guy.
So she witnessed, she didn't see Rex and the man having sex. However, when they're leaving the home together, the detective and this witness leave the home together. They leave who they believe is Karen Vergata in the home. When she looks back, this witness, she sees a terrified looking Karen Vergata through the window. At one point, Ketchalisk even here says naked in Massapequa Park. It's a very small area. At one point, she even escapes the home naked, according to the reports. Very tight-knit area. This is the photo of the house. You can see there's a house right next door to it, literally right there. So people are asleep, obviously. This seems to be in the middle of the night, but I don't know that they wouldn't hear a woman screaming or running naked. But the assumption from the news conference is that this woman, who they believe was Karen Vergata, is incredibly scared, almost fearful for her life. The detective says, forget about it. Let's go. She's okay. She says they're playing a game.
So the suggestion here is that she saw one of the victims possibly on the last night that this woman was alive.
Yeah, and then there's a curveball in all this, because apparently that same evening, or in the past, I have to double check this, Rex would create or light fires in a quote unquote blue barrel in the backyard in the middle of the night. That was something he would do. And I don't know if it was this night that they saw a fire, but someone on one of the nights saw a fire in the backyard. But yeah, I don't know what to tell you, because I'm not a criminal.
Well, the implication there would be that he's destroying evidence, right?
Yeah, that's what one would think. But just what about? I don't know. This just took it into such a different direction. Now now. And by the way, Ketchalisk has been very vocal. He all along has thought that Rex Heuermann, I don't know why, is bisexual. This just takes it down a totally different path. And we know that there was a Asian male who appeared to be cross-dressing who's murdered. What about this notion, Phil? And then I've got to get to Scott so I don't get yelled at. But what about this notion that he is potentially bisexual, that there's this Asian male also found? How does that change the course of the investigation if you're learning that information?
Well, I don't think it changes the course, but it's certainly giving more, again, more context to what has happened to these victims. So you've got a guy that, I mean, he's got no vices at all. He doesn't care, you know, who or what, as long as he's attracted. And some, you know, there's a sexual component to all this stuff. Sex, drugs, or money, right? So this is all about sex. He's taking it to the ultimate here, and he gets excited with men, with women. And I don't think now, if they can corroborate, now remember, this is all going to need to be corroborated. And if they can corroborate this through the investigation, then it is certainly going to give us at least a possible answer as to why we have the male in this mix of women that are being recovered, and he's dressed like a woman. So it is interesting. I mean, these are different things now that are coming forward, and it's going to be, this has turned into a huge puzzle. And so they're now putting these new pieces into it, and we will get a clearer picture as this goes on. But it adds a very interesting perspective to the total investigation. That this guy is just sounds to me like he's just a different, a whole new definition of evil.
Yeah. Allie79 makes an excellent point. The word sex and wreck should not be in the same sentence, although they do rhyme, and I love saying it. And then Karen says, by the way, shout out to Katie Cool, I think it was, who left, not to be confused with Katie Cool Lady. I apologize, but she just donated a YouTube membership, so thank you, or became a YouTube member. Karen says a detective left her. That is correct. And so this character, James Burke, he has been cited many times. This detective, though, in the description is an African-American, according to the witness. But a lot of people along the way have thought that this guy, James Burke, has somehow been linked up to this case. Scott Duffy, multiple questions for you. They obviously have to rule him out, I imagine. And I imagine that's something they're doing, is ruling out this sort of X factor, this former James Burke, former Suffolk County PD guy. But secondly, and more interestingly to me, and this came up quite a bit, by the way, Catch List says the entire affidavit is suspicious. We'll see. Asa Ellerip is at home, and apparently, according to these reports, she was part of this swinger life. Do authorities, if you're investigating this, do you now need to go back to Asa Ellerip, the wife, and start asking her a lot more questions? And what do you start with?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, does she have an attorney? My guess is she has an attorney. So
She does have an attorney, yes.
Sure. So that's going to throw a wrench in the mix, and just kind of but remember how all this started coming about in some of the early, for example, with the former police chief who
Hold on one sec, Scott. So this is correct. I'm confused, and I apologize. The woman witness was African-American, not the cop. So that's why people think it could be this character, James Burke, potentially, but
potentially, sure.
So Asa was offered to have sex with the witness, but the witness said she did not like black women, African-American women, and that's why they did not have sex with each other. Go ahead, Scott. A lot of sex talk for a Friday. Go ahead.
I have to go take a shower after we're through.
Yeah, look at this. Gross, heavy drugs for sure. Go ahead, Scott. Scott, before that, Scott has a great spot. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. So let's back this train up.
Yeah.
We remember this investigation could have been solved many years ago, but it was derailed, right? We do have information that a police chief who is now, since I imagine, sitting in jail, had his own skeletons in his closet, and some deep-seated ones, right? Criminal behavior with regards to child pornography and things of the like. So this police chief is also, remember, police chiefs and district attorneys and people who are elevated in life in their community, of all, whether it be legal system, banking systems, churches, and so forth. You just have these relationships that are very tight. And now throw in, the fact that this chief is doing something, hiding things. That's why he didn't want the FBI involved in the early onset, because he wasn't worried about solving anything. He was worried about protecting himself, and so had that power to do so. So and as more comes out that, hey, there are swinging parties, and you have Rex now who's hosting these parties, possibly with or without his wife. I quite frankly, I couldn't imagine, if they are frequent in nature, that his wife is not part of it. I just couldn't imagine, unless she's frequently out of the picture and not there, and he's doing this all on his own. But now, I think we're going to see, as you peel back this onion, there could be quite a few people who are probably with their fingers crossed saying, please don't come to my door. Please don't come to my door. Where law enforcement may say, hey, we want to know if so many years ago you remember being at the party, or, whatever, other parties, just to corroborate what is being said. So I have a feeling you're going to see other people, some pretty high stature, which seems like this has been marred with from the get-go. And this new commissioner has his work cut out. But, hey, we're talking about the horrible destruction of how many lives who for one reason or another, as we've always called them, whatever the word to call what they're doing, prostitutes, sex workers, they're all vulnerable victims who have wound up in that life. And look, now they've been brutalized and buried. So I have a feeling those aren't the only secrets. The only secrets of their identity, well, let me put it this way: the secrets of those that still yet to be identified, and then, of course, those we're finding are being identified through some amazing genealogical work. I'm sure there are people out there that may not be a part of the homicide in any shape, way, or form, but definitely were part of this really, what sounds like this hardcore, anything goes sex parties, swinging parties, and whatnot. So, what does that mean? Hey, if you're going to a swinger party, just make sure that nobody there is a serial killer, because 10, 15 years from now, somebody's going to come knocking on your door saying, hey, Scott.
Scott, what are you doing tonight? Scott, this takes on a whole new meaning when I ask you what you're doing tonight. Look at this. Tali from Israel, Tel Aviv. Her family is in the South, I believe. Joel, it's been a hard 2 weeks, and still I'm so happy I have this channel and this amazing community to be with in this very difficult time. Fridays are my absolute fave. Love you three and my STS fam. Thank you. Tali, we are thinking of you, thinking of Henshi Held is in Jerusalem. What's going on there is horrific, horrible, awful. I just met someone personally who just lost a 21-year-old at the prime of his life. Went missing, and they just found his remains. So what's going on there is horrific, and thinking of you every day. Carm is thinking of you. Carm's fired up, man. She thinks she's the head of the IDF. She strategizes. She calls me, and she's trying to run the show from Miami Beach. Misdemeanor OG. We're another minute on this, and we'll pivot off. Look into the Hamptons S&M house parties at this time too, which is what Scott was just saying. Starts at Manhattan clubs. Apparently, there's a whole network of this out in the Hamptons. Fil Waters. Again, I am particularly interested now in the wife and what she knew, because it sounds like she knew a lot more. If you got her in the interview room, which is your comfort zone, what would you begin what would you begin with? I know you're going to say, I'm going to treat her the same way as everyone, but what kind of line of questioning would you have for her?
Well, I've reiterated this before. This is one of these interviews where you've got to get a history before you start getting into the events. And so with her, I want her to explain to me, start with, how did you meet this guy? And how did that romance blossom? And then how do we get to the point where we get married? And what are you doing? Are you working? What was it that attracted you to him, and so forth and so on? And then move slowly into these particular activities, and look, you got to be, again, in the interview room, it's important to be empathetic. It's important to make sure that they trust you, that you're not sitting in there in judgment of them. And that's what I would certainly try to convey to her, that especially when we're going to get off into these salacious details about their sex life, and if what you've talked about here is in fact true. And again, I don't know, but for the sake of our discussion here, that's what I would be doing, is trying to get her to the point where she will trust me enough to be able to talk about these things that sitting in a room talking to some detective is going to be embarrassing. And so you've got to put her in a place where, again, she trusts that that's not the purpose of this interview, is to embarrass her. It's always a journey for the truth, and that's what you're seeking.
Darlene Dunlap, good afternoon, gentlemen. Being the police commissioner, Scott, this will be the last set of questions on this. Being that the police commissioner was at the press conference, wouldn't the PD have vetted this information before releasing it? I think that they are doing that, but that is a good question, Scott, if you want to react to that. Sarah Adams says, theories of a madman. The other thing I'll leave you with, which is what I brought up earlier, there's another couple of witnesses, two more witnesses who did not sign sworn affidavits, but who I think both talked about how Rex, and they were both sex workers, that Rex pulled out a weapon and basically told them to shut up and force them. And witness number one, the cabbie, heard him go into the woods and fire off a weapon, or there were reports of that. So it appears he had a weapon. But Scott, I guess if you want to circle back to that other question, are you surprised that the chief or the commissioner was there without maybe properly vetting this? Or, Phil said, implied that the buck stops with him, and he probably did do what he had to do. This commenter says, I believe James Burke is in the swinger ring, in my opinion. So I'm sure they're looking at that. And by the way, I'm getting corrected. Thank you, Joel. The witness is African-American, not the detective. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and I would imagine they had some discussions, both the attorney and the commissioner, who's going to be the lead? Is this going to be a police conference? Is this going to be the attorney based on providing information on behalf of the victims' families? So it sounds like, because I didn't see it, but it was directed by the attorney, correct? It was his press conference?
It was John Ray, the attorney's press conference, correct.
And so thereby the police commissioner could have been there, left himself out of it, but he chose to be there. And what I gather is he is saying, you know what, this information is just too much to not release, but it's not something we want coming from the police department. So thereby you've done due diligence, go ahead and put it out there. And I'll be more than happy to be side by side at the podium, just kind of being still. I think what that does, like Phil said earlier, it gives credibility. It lends that there is truth. But I think the commissioner is also saying, guess what? Whatever happened in the past that might have included judges and members of the community. And if you're afraid of talking, know that I stand behind that. I'll be willing to overturn any stone and go through any door that needs to go through in order to find the truth, to put this finally to bed. So I just think it's a good thing. And the commissioner is basically saying, hey, we have some ugly truths to get to the bottom of, and this is just the beginning of it.
Do we
By
know
the way,
the background of the woman?
say that again, Phil.
Do we know the background of the woman?
Of this witness,
Yes. Was she
we.
a prostitute?
I'm sorry.
Was she a prostitute at the time?
No, she was not involved in the sex trade, is what we're told. Neither witness 1 nor 2, who were signed sworn affidavits, neither of them were in the sex trade, according to this.
So she's just a girlfriend or whatever of this detective.
Correct.
And
correct.
they're both
And
in this activity.
yes, and since I am slow on the uptake, I just want to reiterate, she was reportedly African American, and the detective, his race was not revealed. But that is why some people are speculating it could be this notorious James Burke. Little bit here, just gifted 10 memberships. Love that. Quick programming note while I have your attention. For Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Monday is the beginning of the Charlie Adelson trial. Dan Markel was our foray into true crime. None other than Court TV's main anchor, Vinnie Politan, will be here 5 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. He's a big fan of Carm, and he's coming on and doing us a huge favor. We're going to be on his show tonight. So this Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, Vinnie Politan, and we'll bring on some of our other heavy hitters right afterwards to break down what's going on with the Charlie Adelson trial. Betty Majors giving us a super sticker. Let's pivot here. Scott, you look exceptionally sharp tonight from Little Bit. $2. If Little Bit is not your... Oh, COE, you blew it. I was going to save this for the end. Too late now. Let's just do it. Look at this. Where's Little Bit? Let me get this. All right, so I was going to save this. I was going to tease it. The COE blew it. Here we go. This is the work of I Am Not T-Pain. We are going to look at this. This is amazing. Phil is mesmerized. He's speechless right now. The COE is going to put this and this separately and this separately on a T-shirt, hopefully on a mug, and we're going to sell these in the merch store. In an effort to free Nugget. This is a STS collector's item here. I will actually wear this shirt probably every day of my life right here. That's how insane it is. The COE is going to do this. We'll have it up in the merch store hopefully by Monday or Tuesday. She's yelling like at me right now. Why am I giving her more jobs? But I'll put that back up. But there you go. You just saw it firsthand. Shout out to I Am Not T-Pain.
He picked out a good Ferrari that looks like an Enzo.
There you go. Look at that. I would have no idea. Phil, Scott, do you know the different Ferrari models? Like, no, you don't. Okay.
I don't. I'll be frank. I don't even know how to spell Ferrari.
Starts with an F.
Common spelling.
Are there 2 R's in the middle and 2 R's in the end?
I think there's one in the end. One at the end.
Okay.
Phil speechless ? Okay, let's move on because there's actually I have a video for everybody. That will be my new tease. I've got about I don't know before I have to run off to do Court TV. So Fil Waters, this Delphi murder case is something else. I don't know if you've been talking about it on other networks, which I won't mention. But basically, what happened is there was a hearing. Prior to this hearing, very graphic crime scene photos were leaked. I'm minimizing this in a major way. This is the story of 2 young girls murdered in Indiana back in 2017. The bodies are found the next day, Valentine's Day, 2017. Libby German, and Abby Williams, 14 and 13-year-old little girls. There's a man in custody named Richard Allen. The defense floated this wild theory because of the way the girls were found that maybe it was a cult. And then there's reports of this cult being members of this cult being corrections officers who were then forcing the hand of suspect Richard Allen. This case has been going on for 5 years. They didn't arrest him till a year ago. So the whole thing has been playing out in a weird way. Somehow, someone who is connected to a member of the defense team leaks these horrific crime scene photos. Let's stop right there because already I knew it happened. Fil Waters is shaking his head. Phil, what does it do to a case? Obviously, it was enough that the judge basically forced Judge Gull, forced the hand of these attorneys. And they say that they withdrew, but essentially they were forced out. What does this do to the case, Phil, that these crime scene photos are now floating around the internets?
Well, it goes to jury nullification. It goes to how are you going to find, you've got to find people that perhaps have not seen these photos. I have not got any interest in looking at them, but there are going to be people out of curiosity going to see them. And it's going to be a little bit of a hurdle when they start going through voir dire to find some jurors that are not going to be tainted in some way by seeing these pictures, because they're going to look, they're going to see them anyway in the courtroom. But you don't want people on a jury, of course, that are predisposed to a conclusion already because you've seen these photos. And the question is going to be for each one of those potential jurors, if this goes to trial, for those potential jurors is, have you seen these pictures? And what you're hopeful is that you're going to get people that are going to tell the truth. Yes, I have, or no, I haven't. So it's just going to narrow the scope of a jury pool, and with the possibility of jury nullification. So yeah, and whoever this, you said this was somebody on the defense team that released these things?
And by the way, this gets really sad and screwy. That it's someone that's reportedly connected, a former employee of the defense attorney, one of the two defense attorneys, and that person committed suicide as a result of this after these photos were leaked. I don't know if you guys know that.
No.
Yeah,
that's terrible. That is terrible. What I was going to suggest is whoever it is needs to do some jail time, but that's horrible. They've apparently inflicted what they thought was punishment on themselves, and that's horrible. But so I can see, and you said the judge has removed the defense.
Yeah. So the judge's quote here, and I'll pivot over to my friend Scott Duffy. She says, Scott, we've had an unexpected turn of events, ladies and gentlemen. Carroll County Judge Fran Gull says during Thursday's hearing, which was yesterday. Earlier this afternoon, the defense attorneys have withdrawn their representation of Mr. Allen. She basically reprimanded the crap out of them. Gull orders Richard Allen, who is entitled to new counsel, to be sent back to the Westville Correctional Facility, and she orders his counsel to send all discovery back to the state of Indiana. Fox News Digital, there's a guy, so the defense attorney has an attorney, and the defense attorney's attorney, talking about attorneys, his name is David Hennessy. He told Fox News Digital that the attorneys did not quit the case, but they, quote unquote, withdrew under coercive circumstances. What kind of mess is this, Scott Duffy?
Wow, that's a mess. And I'm trying to compare stories of one to the next, and
by the way, Tea Lemon, usually it's lemon tea, says Vinny is so hot. He's going to be on our show, and you can convey that message to him in person Monday 5 p.m. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, it's just so sad that, and I don't know how or what were their circumstances for this employee doing what they did, but obviously.
So the background on that, real quick, the way I understand it is that these young girls, may they rest in peace, and they went out in a horrific way, that they were laying in very odd positions, one hand up, down, leaves sort of covering them. And that's where this defense came up with this cult theory about Odinism. And so the working theory about this is that whoever this former employee was of the defense team, and by the way, they gave some of this information to a podcast that I'm not familiar with, but it's called Murder Sheet. The guy is an attorney. His name is Kevin Greenlee, and and Kane, who they were the first to report this connection. So I want to give them credit, even though I've never seen them. But the working theory, Scott Duffy, is that whoever this person was that ends up committing suicide, I guess, believes so strongly that it was some sort of cult act by a cult that's why he leaked it, or she leaked it, and ended up killing themselves. So go ahead. That's the working theory.
Yeah, and the domino effect beyond just the fact that these pictures are out there for anybody to see. The domino effect is who suffers, the family, right? These beautiful young girls' families suffer because what was on the cusp of getting ready for trial is now pushed back. Who knows how long, for a whole new defense team to get involved. So justice is delayed here, and it's just it's really sad. It's just I can't even. Just on so many levels, just beyond the pictures. I mean, the pictures will have made their way into the courtroom once they were entered as evidence, and for the select few of jury and so forth, that's hard enough for them to grasp that. But now this has really shocked the whole system. So now you're going to have a whole nother set of rules that this judge is going to lay down, and it's and then who knows, are you able to ultimately get a jury to sit on this? So it's, unfortunately, I think we've really pushed the clock on this, and who knows what's going to happen.
And they did ask the host of Murder Sheet about those photos, and they thankfully kind of refused to answer, just saying that they wish they had not seen them, that it was unbelievably disturbing to look at. These are the things that Scott and Fil had to do often. I don't know how they did it. Fil, no need to raise your hand, just interrupt. Fil Waters.
I want to make a comment about the attorney for the attorneys saying that they were coerced. Is that
which is, by the way, here, this comment, that's so damn sad. But this comment, to your point, Baldwin requested a withdrawal. I'm sure that's the way it went down, but it sounds like they were basically told by the judge in the chambers, get the hell out of here. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I would think that if those attorneys had any integrity at all, they would have had themselves put into withdrawal immediately, because that whole situation there with their person doing this kind of thing, that, to me, that destroys the credibility of that particular team of defense lawyers. So they should have left on their own anyway. If the judge suggested to them that they need to think about that, and they did that, that's not coercion. That's just common sense. Because what that's set up for is to appeals. So incompetent counsel. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that if this goes to a trial, if this person's convicted, you're just setting up a whole host of appeals. So this lawyer, for the lawyers, coming out and making this kind of a comment, what does he think he's accomplishing? I don't even understand it when these mouthpieces get up here and they just got to say something. That was freaking stupid to say that. These attorneys should have withdrawn on their own. So,
it's ego.
No flying over spilled milk with these zeros.
It sounds like it's their ego. Grimmett here says the person who took the snaps, this must be a Brit or someone from the UK or the Republic of Ireland, but the person, I love this, the person who took the snaps, we would say pics, sent them to a friend, and the friend killed himself, per the Murder Sheet podcast. So there's the short on that. Look at this. I didn't know everyone thought that Vinny Politan was such an attractive middle-aged man. Look at this. Vinny is smoking. Vinny is going to be on. Smiley face. No way he's better than my friend Scott and Fil. But look at this. Unbelievable. Sky Goddess says, unbelievable. Sorry the person self-harmed, but it was a crime to leak the photos. These sweet young girls have loved ones. Again, I think this person who is Fil would say, unalived himself. I think probably in his mind felt like they were doing the right thing, thinking it was a cult, took it to the next level, and then couldn't maybe handle the guilt of having leaked it. But if you think about how crazy this is, I mean, someone lost their life because of this, not to mention the 2 young girls. So the whole thing is an unmitigated disaster. Look at this, the STS COE. Do you want a STS mug or CrimeCon merch signed by Scott and Fil? Here's your chance. Sign up here. COE, is there some kind of I don't want to give you extra work, but I'm about to. Is there some kind of QR code that we could put up? The COE, we have a lot of giveaways, none better, of course, than Scott and Fil. I'm not going to drop names, but Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline sub. There's a link in chat. But is it easy to copy that link, COE? She's going to respond in a moment. Moto 88 is Vinny's coming on to discuss Dan Markel. They can click on the link. So there, everyone, in chat, there is a link to click on, and you can be eligible for an STS giveaway. We have a lot of them. We've got books signed by Ann Burgess, books signed by Kerry Rawson, stuff signed by Fil Waters, stuff signed by Scott Duffy. The list goes on, and we will be giving out those giveaways. All you have to do is fill out that whatever that link is. Anyway, moving on here. Fil Waters is going to get annoyed now. Brian Kohberger's aunt speaks to the U.S. Version of the U.S. the U.S. edition of The Sun, which is a British tabloid. So again, this is single source information coming from a tabloid newspaper, is that Brian Kohberger's aunt has reportedly spoken to this paper saying that she believes that her nephew is going to be found guilty at his highly anticipated trial, if it happens, for allegedly stabbing the 4 University of Idaho students. Of course, that is Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan Chapin. Horrible story. The aunt goes on to say, Fil Waters, I think he will be found guilty. He was always quiet, but I never imagined he could be capable of something like this. I'm really worried he may try and kill himself. Your reaction?
People just can't keep their freaking mouths shut. What was the point of that statement? I mean, really, these people seeking their 15 minutes, it always amazes me, but these types of events, they bring these people out, and I don't get it. They want to be part of the story, and they are not part of the story. So they make themselves part of the story by making some comment like this. I don't care what she thinks. I don't think anybody else does either. So what's the point? But there's always somebody out there. There's some media outlet that's going to give somebody like this a platform. So everything that's brought forth doesn't need to be sent out all over the freaking interwebs. It's just, I guess my biggest issue is there appears to be now, and maybe there wasn't before, but there appears to me that there was some kind of discipline within journalism. And I don't see that now at all. I just know my experience with the media in my 33-year career and dealing with them specific to the job I was doing in Houston as a homicide detective. It's just a whole different atmosphere. It's just folks trying to put something out to get a headline or a byline somewhere. And I just don't understand it. So you could probably comment about that better than I, Joel.
Well, that's why you're seeing the breakdown of the mainstream media as we speak. And boneheads like me can have a show on YouTube where people come to watch. People are tired of the traditional media, and people are tired of boring backgrounds. You want me to just have a little bookshelf? Why don't you just have a little bookshelf with a vase with some flowers in it? Not happening. Not on my show. Sheila Woodbury, I just love you guys. I watch STS every. Thank you. Friday is always my favorite. Bonnie Lee Lopez speaking the truth here. Nobody beats Scott Duffy. Maybe Fil Waters. Dom's mom about Vinny. It's the eyes. It's the eyes. I want you guys all here Monday at 5. We can embarrass Vinny. Vinny's got it going on, according to Cosmic Shy. Once again, STS giveaway. Win a free STS Mugger Crime Con merch signed by either Fil or Scott. There's also a chance to win signed books from Dr. Burgess, Kerry Rawson, signed Court TV backpacks, and so much more.
Have you got a picture of Vinny? I'm intrigued now.
COE, do you want to put up a picture of Vinny Politan? Don't worry. I think they're overselling him, Phil. He's got nothing on you or Scott. But
well,
COE,
I'm just curious now. The people are drooling.
COE, get us a good Vinny Politan photo.
Get us a picture of Vinny up there.
Yeah, he's lean. He doesn't eat sugar like me, so he's not, he's not chubby. Look at this. Embrace Smith became a YouTube member. Scott Duffy. So, according to this aunt, as I say, the tabloid recently traveled to Las Vegas to speak with relatives because they say a big majority of Brian Kohberger's family has now moved out to Las Vegas. She says in speaking to the Sun that she has now struggled to watch the news of late, citing her increasing belief that Brian Kohberger committed the murders. Is there any value at all in this? But before you get there, Scott Duffy.
Oh, yeah, I know Vinny. He is an attractive man.
Yeah, he's definitely posing hard right there. Look how hard he's posing.
That looks like Phil 2 years ago.
Yeah. Scott Duffy's in a Speedo. This guy's got no chance of competing. But come on the show Monday, 5 p.m. We'll embarrass Vinny. But there he is. Look at those eyes. Steely blue eyes. Scott Duffy, I have no idea what I was just asking you. Wasn't I just asking you something? Well, I mean, is there, to Phil's point, is there any value to speaking to the aunt and her telling you that her nephew here was a lonely guy, a loner. She's worried that he's going to commit suicide. She can't believe he did it. Is there any value add here in any way?
I don't know what these family members are. Do they think that this information is not getting outside the family dinner? And so then they put it out there. If she's worried about him committing suicide or saying things, she's not helping by saying that, hey, I think he did it. So, let's all move out to Las Vegas and do whatever. No, there's nothing. And, totally agree with Phil. They're seeking whatever. Just say no comment and move on.
So we're gonna get to two more stories. One that has a video accompaniment, and it's a Houston story. I did that for Phil. Look at this, Joe. By the way, I'm a big huge fight tomorrow. By the way, and guess what? My dear mother-in-law is in town. Shout out to Sandy. She's here, and because of her, I'm gonna have to miss the live event. So no one tell me anything. Glad to know you are too. Who do you got tomorrow? Makhachev or Volkanovski? Usman or Chimaev? I hope Volk and Usman. I'm with you on both of those. However, I don't think Makhachev is losing, and I want Chimaev to lose. This guy's talking a lot of smack, but I think he wins. So I think Makhachev, my money's on Makhachev and Chimaev. For those who do not know, I think they're both from Dagestan. They're not guys that you would want to meet in a dark alley. Let's put it this way. Fil and Scott would have a hard time taking them down in a foot pursuit, not because they couldn't catch them, but these guys are trained killers and know how to stop themselves from being tripped. But Fil is shaking his head.
If they can outrun 930 feet per second, then they can go.
Look at this. I love this idea. Ned Smith, I want a toy chewed by Nugget, signed by... And then we can dip Nugget's paw in some ink and have Nugget sign it. That would be the ultimate giveaway. I saw that, Betty Majors. I'm going to leave that for the very end, but I'm going to do it. I wrote that down. I saw that. As long as I don't forget. If I do, the COE should jump in and remind me. Okay. Joran van der Sloot. I knew Phil was going to start to shake the head right away. Okay, we all know Natalie Holloway. She goes missing and is ultimately never recovered. Joran van der Sloot, this crazy dude who's in prison for another murder, is now confessing for the umpteenth time. Fil Waters, he cannot be charged, not no longer, but cannot be charged for murder in the U.S. or Aruba. He did an interview with police. There's been this whole, what's the word I'm looking for? Extortion thing going on with the parents of Natalie Holloway and Joran van der Sloot. So he records this interview. He confesses. In a new confession, he says, Fil Waters, that he was alone. Two friends who had been with him earlier that night left before he attacks her. He says he brutally attacked then 18-year-old Natalie Holloway on this Aruba beach back in 2005. He says, Fil Waters, he kicked Natalie Holloway in the face extremely hard, that he thinks that the blow may have killed her or at least knocked her unconscious. He then picks up a cinder block he finds in the sand and smashes it into her skull. Here's the quote from him. She tells me she doesn't want me to feel her up. I insist. I keep feeling her up either way, and she knees me. She ends up kneeing me in the crotch, and that's when he turns on her. He's confessed many times, different stories. Any reason to believe this guy?
Oh, I think so. I don't know that he's offered different stories. I don't recall him offering a total confession like he's done here. The only thing I would question is whether or not he did in fact sexually assault her at some point. And then he says he disposed of her body by throwing it in the ocean. So and of course, Natalie's never been recovered. I think all the evidence over the years has indicated he is the suspect. I don't think there's any question to that, but now for the first time, he's detailing how he killed her and why. And so I think, look, it's coming from him. At this point in time, what reason does he have to make up some other crazy story? Just tell the truth about what happened. And this one, to me, with all the stories that have been told, this sounds the most credible. And he, of course, this was all part of a plea deal.
Yes.
And he's going to get, but you know what, these plea deals, I am sure that they've discussed this at length with that family, and they, to some degree, would agree with what's happening here because they want to know the truth. And I think he has offered the truth, and that is going to put, I think he even said, I hope this brings you some closure. Well, closure never happens. Everybody knows how I feel about that word. But I think what it will do is it will bring a conclusion to this. And it's hopeful that it will bring about a little peace for the family. And it's in my view, it's a very small measure of justice, but it's a measure of justice nonetheless. So I don't think at this point there's any reason for him to not tell the truth. There may be this little part regarding a possible sexual assault, but.
Well, I know you're on her show often, and I usually don't plug the other networks, but my wife used to work there as a correspondent. Ashley Banfield on News Nation, she was up in arms. I happened to catch the segment. She says she does not believe a word. So it's interesting to hear that you believe a word, and I would, given Ashley or Phil, I'm going with Phil on what he thinks, and Phil tends to believe this.
Well, my only question would be, so what's the alternative story?
You have no doubt, Phil, you have no doubt that he committed this crime, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the evidence has shown that for years. And he goes down, he murders a Peruvian woman, and he's in prison down there for that. under the same types of circumstances. I just, what's the other story? Who's the other person? So I just respectfully would disagree with Ashley that I think what he's saying is believable. And look, the guy only gets 20 years, and they're going to run him not consecutive. They're going to run him concurrent. That's what I find amazing. This guy, even if he serves the entire, I think he got a 23-year term or something in Peru, something like that, 22-year. He'll be, 50, 58 years old or something when he gets out. And he can go on and live a life. Now, I will say the other comment that he made that I thought was interesting, and I've seen guys make this particular comment, but that he said, I'm not the same person that I was then, and I have given my life to Jesus Christ. Now, I, as a Christ follower, am not going to judge him by that statement. That's between him and the Lord. But if he's in fact made that conversion, if he has in fact accepted that salvation, the long and short of it is that he's still going to be held accountable here on earth for what he did, but he has secured his eternity. And there's a lot of people that have a problem with someone like him by saying that. So if that is in fact true, that that's what has happened in his life, then I am happy for his eternity, because he knows where he's going to spend it. So that'll probably get them all panties in a wad, but that's the reality of a relationship with Jesus Christ.
There you go. Ashley, $10 super sticker. Wear a sport coat for Carm. It's very hard to say. Wear a sport coat for Carm on Court TV. I already have it laid out. It'll be on.
Well, you have to.
I have to. It's
They
part
won't
of
let you on there with the Hawaiian shirts.
That's why mainstream media is dying, because Fil Waters can't go on TV with just his Hawaiian shirt. That is why mainstream TV is dying. That's why this show will be the halftime show of a Super Bowl within the next 10 years. Mark my words. Forget Rihanna, forget Beyonce, forget them. It's going to be STS halftime Super Bowl show. Sorry, I got worked up there. Scott Duffy, let's round this out. And then the final story is a Houston story. Joran van der Sloot. It's not Sloot, by the way. Someone who speaks the language told me it's Sloot, and I listen to them. He says in this interview, he grew angry with her resistance. He grabbed a quote unquote huge cinder block and quote unquote smashed it in her head. Smashed her head in with it completely. Her face basically, collapses in, he says. Even though it's dark, I can see her face is collapsed in. As Fil just said, he then says he drags her until she was knee deep in water, pushes her out to sea. At that point, according to the interview, he says he confesses. This is not a quote for him, but he confesses he goes home that night. He checks out his soccer scores the night he murders her, gets on a porn website, and then gets up the next day, takes a shower, and goes to school. What does that say about the depravity of this human being, that he can murder an 18-year-old girl and then admit that he goes home, watches porn, checks out soccer, goes to bed, goes to school? What does it say about this person?
Yeah, it adds to everything I think we've been talking for the time we've spent together here, is that there's a lot of connections with extreme violence and pure selfishness, and then of course pornography, murder. I tell you, in my career, as I always like to sit people down, and when I talk to them, I'm like, what kind of, steered you this path or that path? And, there's a lot of common ground with what he is saying that I have heard before. And it's amazing, these connections of one thing leads to another. and so forth. I too like his statement, because his statement is all about her. I think the mother probably said, you don't leave one detail out. And I think she absolutely expected the worst. She wanted to hear him say it, knowing that it would be difficult to listen to. But she's really a brave woman, and has really spent the better part of these almost 20 years getting to this point. So the fact that he says she turned away from me, she didn't want my advances, she took the higher road at that point, in all, as a high schooler and whatnot, like, you're not the guy. So and then of course he took that rejection to the level of murder. I don't think, and the Peruvian victim is yet another aspect. I'm not so sure that there are not other crimes in this guy's life while he was out and about, because it's he seems to have been able, just the way he's saying, I took a shower, I watched some pornography, I did this, I did that, and checked my scores, or that it just goes to show this the way he was thinking. He really had no remorse at that time, no fear, and what does he do? He goes and seeks that pleasurable remedy for himself. So I think that behavior was prior to what had happened with Natalie. The fact that he is putting together sexual gratification and then of course extreme violence, and the way I also think when he's reliving that, when he's telling it, there's probably a little bit of satisfaction. I agree. Maybe he's moving into that redemption, remorse, but I think he's also reliving it to the point of excitement, and it just goes to show just how hardcore a human can go down that path.
Interesting. Chilling to hear that he's reliving it and maybe enjoying it. Meg P, we need panties and a WAD t-shirt also. Any graphic artists out there, please send it to survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. I'll present it next week, and we'll get it in the our merch store. Will go down in infamy. We need panties and a WAD STS emoji. I have no idea how to make an emoji. If anyone does, I'll use it. Got to have a little Hawaiian t-shirt for Nugget is the comment. Fil should file for custody for Nugget. I agree 100%. My heart breaks that Nugget isn't that person's home. I'm not going to say anything derogatory. Can we do a wellness check on Nugget is the next question. So this last story here, by the way, this is going to be made into a t-shirt. So is this. The COE's got to be on it already. That and that are going to be t-shirts. Best merch store on the internet.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please, Fil.
My chair is squeaking this time, and I don't know why, because sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. I don't know. So I apologize for the squeaking chair. On the front, on some of them, you can do it however you want to do it. But I would suggest on some of them that on the front, we have the STS logo, the Surviving the Survivor. And then on the back, put whatever the graphic is going to be.
I kind of like that idea. What do you guys think? This graphic goes on the back with an STS logo in the front. Same for this. I kind of love this because it's just so clean and neat, and you see how beautiful.
Well, you can do both. You can do both. You can. I'm just saying. I like the smaller logo on a lot of my shirts up on the pocket, up on the left breast area.
Yeah.
And then the bigger thing on the back. The ones on the front, I'm not a big fan of. But I'm just saying you can do both, but just offer a variety.
COE, I hope you heard all that loud and clear. I'll make sure that it is according to your specifications, at least on one of the two.
Yes.
There you go. At least one of the two. This final story comes to us from none other than Houston. It's an interesting story, and I'll give you the recap real quickly as we are running out of time. A man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend last year. He got into a fight with her family after he accepted a plea deal Thursday morning in a downtown Houston courtroom. Frank DeLeon Jr. was sentenced to 45 years in prison for the death of 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez, who he killed back in January 22. Initially, DeLeon did not want to take the plea deal, but he changed his mind once he and his lawyer realized that the judge was going to move forward with the murder trial on Tuesday unless he accepted the deal. Alvarez's mother, the victim's mother, Ana Machado, she takes the stand to give her impact statement. She calls this guy DeLeon a monster, and she walks off the stand toward DeLeon before she was restrained by a bailiff. That's when Alvarez's uncle charges DeLeon, the suspect. Another fight breaks out between DeLeon, Alvarez, and everyone else. Here's the video. Let's roll it.
Window as the two families got into a fight. The judge did not allow cameras inside the courtroom, so that's why you don't hear the audio. It started with Diamond Alvarez's mother walking towards 19-year-old Frank DeLeon Jr. after giving a passionate impact statement. A bailiff intervenes, but seconds later, the situation escalates as Diamond's uncle jumps in from the gallery and begins punching DeLeon. That's when DeLeon's mother gets up from her seat and hurls towards Diamond's mother and pushes her. The two moms at one point fighting as another family member from the victim's side joins in and begins attacking DeLeon's mother. The brawl finally broken up as Diamond's uncle is handcuffed and taken away. The judge then called order and cleared the courtroom. A short time later, Diamond's mother, Ana Machado, apologized for losing control.
That was wrong of me. That was wrong of us because we're not monsters.
There's the fight. Phil, your initial reaction, because there's a twist to this story. Do you know the twist, Phil?
I'm not aware there was a twist. I know that he shot his girlfriend 22 times in the back, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a big twist here. I'm going to get to it in a moment. But what's your reaction to seeing a fight break out in your hometown city, your adopted hometown city of Houston?
Well, I looked at the video yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I'm not surprised that I had a capital murder trial where the same kind of thing happened. So it does happen. And I'm not surprised at all in this case. Very emotional case. It's a beautiful young girl.
I'm going to try to play it without audio in the background here. Yeah, there we go. I'll take it back. Go ahead, Phil. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I was just going to say that I think the mother coming out and saying what she said, good for her. She appears to be an honorable person. She loves her daughter. This monster has taken, to use her word, an accurate description, has taken her away from her and her family. So I have an understanding as to why she did what she did, or the other family members did what they did. But she got up and said, what we did was wrong. What our family did was wrong. We shouldn't have done it. So good for her. She closed that circle, and I believe she's completely sincere in that. But I tell you what, unless you've had something like that happen, you can't imagine what that feels like sitting in that courtroom. And I've sat in many of those courtrooms and had a connection with the family and watched them as the sentencing takes place or the trial comes to a conclusion. And I'm telling you what, there's no way to describe the emotion involved in those proceedings.
Shout out to Todd Hudak Clement. Hey, y'all, first time live. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Try to make it more often. We have a good time here.
So what's the twist?
Well, I'm about to tell you. Here we go. While this is all going on, let me bring it back up one more time. While this is all going on, and let me rewind this bad boy. So while this is all going on, by the way, imagine me doing that to Super Bowl halftime, telling the 70,000 people and 500 million people watching, wait a second while I rewind this video while I'm single-handedly doing everything. COEs there, of course. While this is all going on, Scott Duffy, there's a hearing going on in the next door courtroom. While this is happening, there's a hearing in the next door courtroom for a guy named Michael Devin Combs. He had a court appearance. He was on bond for assaulting his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his 2 children in 2022. He, as this breaks out, sees all the bailiffs run to the next door courtroom, and he somehow is able to unshackle himself, and he walks out of the courthouse, and takes off. And he goes on the lam for the next 2 days. Is this a breakdown in the system? Phil is shaking his head. This is his adopted hometown. Scott, what about this twist? Guy next door sees an opening. The bailiffs run out. They hear the commotion. Leave this guy alone. He's a criminal suspect. Unshackles himself. Walks out. What's going to happen now, Scott?
Well, whatever he was facing before, and I imagine depending on what his past was, it probably wasn't too bad. So now he's going to be slapped with an escape charge. But I was noticing just how quietly and very.
There it is.
Sorry about that, guys. I put the phone on the freaking charger. Forgot to turn it all off.
That's all good. I love it. Wouldn't be a show if your phone didn't.
He probably escaped just as easy as the judge was able to quickly get out of that courtroom.
Yeah, the judge beelined it. What is there a protocol? Fil Waters, is there a protocol for that? If a fight breaks out in the courtroom, is the judge supposed to leave?
Well, I think if they don't, they're idiots. Now there was a judge in Harris County. Gosh, I think his name was Jimmy Duncan. I think I got the right judge here, but he carried a gun on the bench. And in fact, there was another judge that shot a guy downtown, some homeless guy that was coming up, and he thought he was going to rob him or whatever. Shot him right down there at 9 o'clock in the morning downtown Houston. So there are some judges that were prone to sit up on the bench armed, and they would have handled that a much different way. But I mean, in terms of I think the funnier picture is, I agree with Scott, I was watching the judge. Boy, she's a beeline. That door's getting open for her, and she's out of there. She's in the chambers. Regarding the other guy, it's embarrassing because I know the sheriff, and these are sheriff's department people that are bailiffs in the courts. And he's a friend of mine. We work together in homicide. And this is just embarrassing for the sheriff's office for something like this. You would think those bailiffs, and most of those people have been up there long enough to know that even if you've got something going on in another area, your first responsibility is the charge of the person that you have sitting in your courtroom. So for everybody to abandon this guy to go address whatever scuffle's going on next door is just a complete, again, I'm going to use this word, it's a lack of discipline. You know, it's somebody needed to go, we can't just leave this guy sitting here. And I'm sure what they were thinking, that false sense of security, that he is shackled. He's not going to get away. Well, listen, I've had guys run down the freaking street in handcuffs running from me. So these guys, if they're prone to do it, they seek an opportunity, they're out of there. It doesn't matter if they've got shackles on or not. So breakdown in I'm sure the Harris County Sheriff's Office will be looking at the protocol regarding handling of prisoners.
Are you gonna call your friend and make fun of him after this?
No.
No. Scott, I would. Scott, you're a better man than me. Scott Duffy, have you ever witnessed a fight break out in a courtroom in all your years?
Yeah. I don't think so. I've been prepared. Like there have been some intelligence where, hey, something's going to happen, and they would bring additional security to tamp things down. So, have not personally witnessed a fight. I would have liked
in the last 25 years, have you ever been in a situation? I know you go to your drinking hole, let's say on Friday nights. Have you been in a situation in the last 25 years where you're in a public arena, like a bar, and a fight breaks out, and you're an FBI agent? What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, I've been in situations, both sports and so forth, where fights have broken out. It's I'm like anything else. I'm a spectator. As long as I can, I'm a pretty good judge, quick judge. Okay, this is not, first of all, I pretty much know where security is, so it's a matter of seconds. I'm not going to put myself in the middle of something, especially if I'm with family and whatnot, unless, of course, I have intervened probably more times than I should have with domestics where I felt like nobody's around, so I have to step in.
Really?
And yeah,
Is
I
that
have,
like on a?
because
Is this like on a quiet street somewhere? You're driving by and
yeah,
you see
yeah,
something? Really?
not walking.
Tell
And
me a story. Tell me a story. I want to hear about this.
was
Really.
one time I was walking. I wasn't in uniform, but I did carry, on and off duty, and so I knew if things were going to go bad, I can step to my next level protection. But I
Yeah.
was going to my favorite pizza place, which was PZ's in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. If
Shout out to
anybody-
PZs. Go
Shout
ahead.
out to PZ's, which I think has since changed a few different ownerships, but they're a young couple where I heard it before I crossed the street, and then my eyes locked in, and I can see that I've seen it so many times where the aggressor, he was the aggressor in this. I've seen it the other way too, but the aggressor, and I could just see her cowering down, and he's pumping himself up and just screaming and screaming, getting louder and louder, to where I knew she's going to get popped. So I use a lot of language. I said, I'm going to get louder. And I didn't get in the middle, but I quickly said, hey, I got a phone here. And, just trying to say it's, this is going to get bad real quick if you don't walk away. And what I quickly realized there, though things now his attention now turns on to me, it's away from her. So I know he's in some sort of bad place. I have to be ready for, hey, he's going to either turn that on to me, or more so, which I've seen, where what I believe to be the victim now turns on me as well. So it's domestics are very tough. So,
by the way, there's a horrific case right now. I don't think they've caught the guy. It was a Hagerstown, Maryland judge. He gave custody to the wife, the ex-wife. The ex-husband goes and murders this judge just last night, right in front of his home. They're looking for the suspect. I don't think that they've caught him. They always say family court is a very violent place. Fil Waters, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you the same thing. Oh my God, time is passing us by here. Have you, in your last 25, 33 years, been witness to a fight? And what do you do in that situation, being a law enforcement officer, a man that is supposed to uphold the law? Do you let them battle it out, or do you get involved in some way, Fil Waters? And by the way, before you answer that,
it depends on the situation.
This looks like you. I love an old school fist fight. Unfortunately, today it's just pop, 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 done. Sounds like a Fil Waters quote. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I would just say that depending on the circumstance, I pick and choose my battles, and it may be one that I just sit down and finish my gentleman jack on the rocks, or it may be one that, like Scott, that if it looks like it's man and a woman thing, and I have intervened in those things. Fortunately, they've all turned out okay, but that just comes with some discernment and some good judgment about whether or not do we intervene. If it's a threat to life, of course, it's immediate. And so it's a matter of sizing up the situation. Do I just need to call the police, direct someone to call the police, or take some immediate action at the moment? But I've done this. I have made arrests off duty because that's what the situation called for. But
interesting. Would you pull out your badge in that situation? Do you say, I'm a Houston police officer, you're under arrest?
oh yeah, no, I would identify myself. That's the first thing I would do is identify myself, and then of course sometimes you get the response that you want, and sometimes you get somebody that wants to belly buck about that. And I mean, I've heard, you're not on duty, that kind of thing.
Probably the wrong thing to say to Fil Waters.
Well,
Look at this. Zero says Scott speaks softly and carries a big stick. That is not a question. That is a statement. If Scott were to ever get loud, be afraid, very afraid. That is Mona Hammock. Scott is actually wearing a cape underneath that jacket, according to Misdemeanor OG. I'm going to be late for Court TV. So sadly, as much as I love this, it is time for me to say go ahead, Fil Waters.
I need to say something real quick.
Please do.
Last week, we had this thing about the Gypsy Rose gal.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to follow up on that, by the way.
Okay. And I said I would go and I would view the videos and document all that good stuff. So I did that. In fact, there's a ton of videos out there about this gal. She's getting interviewed about the whole story and all that. So, and there were some people last week that got enraged, to use the word of one of them, about some of the comments that we made.
Yes.
And justifying murder, which I found fascinating. And it's obviously, these folks respond with these emotional responses, yada, yada, yada. So having watched the background about this Gypsy Rose gal and the horrific thing, even if half of what she's saying is true about what happened to her, it is a horrific, horrific story. No doubt about it. It is just horrible. I can't imagine wishing anything like that on anybody that I know. But, and here's the but, when she did this thing, I think we determined at the age of 19, right, when the actual murder occurred. And I would say this: nobody, no one, not her, not you, not Scott, not me, not this person that's enraged, no one has the right to engage in a premeditated murder because of what you went through. If she had acted if it was an act of passion, if she was in the middle of this with her mom and suddenly she pulls out a knife and jukes her and kills her, that's one thing. But to premeditate, to plan, to get a hold of this guy that she meets online who is somewhere on the autism scale and manipulate him to go in and murder her mother, which was for the sole purpose of revenge. That's what I'm getting out of this whole story. That's wrong. And she did not get enough, in my judgment. That sentencing of 10 years and now she's being released after 5, to me, is a miscarriage of justice.
That is Fil Waters, always speaking his mind. I will say, in fairness to the audience, I do think that I came unprepared for that. I didn't realize the extent of that story.
Well, I did what I said I'd do. Yeah. I did what I said I'd do.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm gonna research it more and try to do an actual
and that's
show.
The conclusion I came to.
There you go. There's Phil's
never justified in a premeditated murder. Period.
Ned Smith brings up a great point. Do Nuggets kidnappers know your former line of work? I sure hope they do. Look at this. Scott pulls out the FBI credentials. That is hot. If Scott was single, I'd date him too. Love intelligent, soft-spoken men. Look at this. What
is this a dating channel?
Scott takes off his glasses and opens his shirt, and there's an S on his chest. And that is from McSpunky. Look at this. Joel is making Vinny wait. That is star power. Yes. Vinny is waiting for us. I have to get over there. I'm going to get screamed at by my mom. Until next week, Love you, America. Love you, Delaware. Love you, Philadelphia. Love you, the big island of Hawaii. Love you, Houston.
Aloha.
Love you, Hawthorne, New Jersey, my home state. Love you, Tasmania, the Republic of Ireland, Scotland, Argentina, and of course, Israel. Wait, let me get this closing music here. Here we go. Love you, everyone. See you Monday, 5 p.m. Vinny Politan. You may have heard of him. He's got dreamy blue eyes. He will be here.